So the where I want to start with this, let's just kind of just have a conversation about. Let's start with the Nets and just let it trickle on down.
Yeah, let's
So
do it. Yeah, we don't really have a huge agenda for what teams we want to cover. I think we're just going to free flow and give our thoughts. I haven't really had a chance to talk to you much. Normally, when the stuff is going down, we're texting throughout the day. I think we're both kind of in between, trying to at least be productive somewhat at work, but also be on Twitter all day. So, interested to see your thoughts on some of these moves and give my thoughts as well. So, you want to start with the Nets? I
yeah,
think that's
man,
a good
let's
place to start.
yeah, because the reason why I want to start with the Nets because when you sit here and you think about the biggest moves that were made, it came out of the Nets organization, and we can sit here and say the stuff was surprising, but then we can also say it's really for the past 3 years everything has been nothing but drama
Yep.
uh, in Brooklyn. When you saw everything play out, like how surprised were you that we got to one day asking for Kyrie asking for requesting a trade, and then all of in less than a week to ending up trading not just Kyrie but also Kevin Durant? How surprised were you?
Honestly, man, with the way not only the league has gone, but with the way the Nets have been since this whole big three, regardless of who you change out for the third person is, regardless, since all of this started, there has just been so much unpredictable stuff happening that I really wasn't too surprised. Like when I got the notification middle of the week that Kyrie requested a trade, it's like for a second, like, oh wow, Kyrie requested a trade. But then you sit and you like comprehend that and you're like, yeah, it makes sense. It's Kyrie. Like, this happens every 6 months. Let's see if they actually trade him this time. And they did. And so from there, you get all the rumors about, everybody's like, oh, that means KD's going to be available. Or, some people are saying
Hmm.
that they're not going to trade KD, they're going to build around him. And I think they could have gone either way. I think they could have kept KD and, tried to build around him. They've got some good assets around from the Kyrie trade, but I really like what the Nets did. I think at this point, you're like, look, we went all in for this. The experiment clearly didn't work. They won one
Hmm.
playoff series, with that core that they had, which is just mind boggling. You could argue that they were a few inches away from a title, in that series against the Bucks. I think most people would agree that they were probably the best team in the league that year. And, Kevin Durant's foot was on the line, so they weren't able to get the win. But revisionist history is always there. So I like what they ended up doing as far as their pivot went. If you look at the full
Hmm.
collection they got, so for Kyrie and KD, they got Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, who they flipped for 5 seconds, five first round picks, and two other second round picks. They got all of that for those two guys. I saw some people
Hmm.
saying that the KD value was underwhelming. I thought that was a great haul for them personally. And so I think if you're
Yeah,
going to commit to the rebuild, I think they got great value. So those are my thoughts, in a long winded
and
nutshell.
and and I agree with you too. So I actually had a friend. Shout out to my boy Rick Sisk. I had a friend send me like this TikTok today, and it was really interesting. And they were comparing the returns that that the Nets had gotten for Harden and Kyrie versus what they got with Gobert, what the Utah Jazz got for trade and Rudy Gobert. And it was interesting because you sit here and look at it in a vacuum. Uh, Utah got Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Walker Kessler. Well, the pick ended up being Walker Kessler,
Hmm.
Jared Vanderbilt, 23, 25, 26, 27, 29 first, right? They got five first out the deal. But then when the Nets, between the Nets and Harden and Kyrie's trades, they got back Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, a 22 pick, 27 pick, and a 29 first. Now, in a vacuum, it really does look like because the Gobert trade was a
I'm Yeah, I
it,
mean that
it,
was a
it, it
joke.
was it was it was a terrible trade then. It's a terrible trade now. So
Right.
so I don't want to compare those two, but I really think the Nets failure to trade these guys earlier is probably the problem. So like by the time they finally could move off of Harden, they were kind of put in a situation where it was like, all right, we either got to move them or we lose them for nothing. And it was the same situation with with Kyrie. However, I do feel like they learned from their situation with Harden. I feel like this package
Mhm.
that they actually got from Dallas was probably the best package that was offered to them. When you sit there, I get it. Josiah was being petty and didn't want to trade Kyrie to the Lakers. Uh, Completely understood it. But if you sit there and looked at what the Lakers were offering, what the Lakers are going to send you, Russell Westbrook, and then those two first round picks, I don't think that's worth it because you know that Russell Westbrook wasn't going to play for you, and then
Mhm.
if you were gonna move Russell, you were probably going to have to send some more assets with him, or you were going to have to buy him out anyways, because
Right.
you know he wasn't going to play with KD. And then so you sit here and you look at the Kyrie trade, uh, you see what people were talking about OG Ananobi was going to go for and what Mikal Bridges was going to go for. I look at someone like Dorian Finney-Smith. He's not necessarily to the caliber of those players, but he's probably just a notch right below. So if you tell me
Right.
OG Ananobi's worth 3 first-round picks, well, look, I better be getting 2 first-round picks for Dorian.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
That's the thing is like I think Bridges alone is worth another like three firsts. So when you look at the haul, that's like seven firsts that they got basically when you combine them all together. Plus Cam Johnson could be worth
yeah.
another first. Like I was talking to some other friends
Mhm.
about this earlier, and I think their equivalent was like eight firsts for KD when you really like attach values next to the players plus the picks.
Mhm.
Like that's a pretty big haul.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about it, and then too, we start talking about and then like bringing Spencer Dinwiddie in. Spencer Dinwiddie is not Kyrie Irving to any degree, but he can give you 60% of what Kyrie's going to give you, and he's going to show up to work every single day. And then
No
like,
controversy.
and then now you move on to the KD trade. Uh, they got back 4 picks, and then they got back Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. Like, if you sit down and look at this Nets roster on paper, this Nets roster is not going to be terrible. They
Oh yeah,
might not
they'll
be
make the
a
playoffs
they might not they might not be a contender, but they're still going to be good, and that is important. You know why? Because they've
because their pick
already
goes to
traded.
Houston, right? Yeah, their own
Exactly.
pick isn't even with them, so they need to at least make the playoffs either way. Like their pick
Yep.
situation's funny because they're in a situation where you don't necessarily need to lose because their picks
Hmm.
are all tied up in the Houston deal, but they have all these other picks from other teams, so they're kind of in that middling situation. But it's okay because they've accumulated so many firsts from other guys.
Yeah. And you say, look, the Nets have put themselves in a great position to capitalize off of, hey, it's another star that wants out, and we need to bring him in. They've got so many role players, and they're deep at the wings, which the
Hmm.
wing position is the most important position
They have so many
nowadays.
wings; it's crazy.
Yeah, bro, this place is wing you. This place got more wings than Wingstop. And so when you sit there and you look at their roster, man, they could always package a couple pieces, package them up with some picks, and they can go out and trade and make that trade in the summer if Toronto finally decides to say, look, let's blow it up. And then Toronto decides to make that move on Pascal Siakam. You bring him in, partner him up with Cam Thomas, who's been freaking balling.
Yeah, Mister 40
Yeah,
points a game, Cam
yeah,
Thomas.
like averaging 40 points a game this week, man. Like the Nets, shout out to the Brooklyn Nets because they actually turned a terrible situation into a good one. But Chance, I also do want to kind of talk about something I don't think anybody's talking about, honestly. Like
What's
we
that?
all know, we all know Kyrie Irving a uh, was a problem child for the Brooklyn Nets from the beginning. From we don't need a coach to the whole vaccine mandate situation, which the vaccine mandate was kind of stupid in New York, anyways. Not all the way his fault, but he's your best player. You need him to play, so he didn't
Right.
play. It was unfortunate. And then to sitting out games and boycotting and it's a long list of Kyrie Irving stuff. However, if you listen to the stuff that has been coming out about the Brooklyn Nets organization, I don't think that Josiah and Sean Marks, the GM, Sean Marks and Josiah, the owner, I don't necessarily think that they handled all of these situations the best. Um,
Hmm.
and and when you sit here and you look at it, you look at like I think that there's a lot of lessons that owners and GMs can learn from the Brooklyn Nets on, all right, hey, watch how you give control to players, right? We're all about player empowerment, but you just can't give them full control. And then
Hmm.
also the second thing too is like when you start talking, like when you start putting, I get Kyrie hasn't been showing up to work and all these different things like that, but when you start hearing about you gonna put a championship clause in his contract, like that that doesn't really address the issue that you have with him. Now, games
Right.
played, different things like that, that makes sense. But then also too, the way Josiah handled the whole the anti-Semitic thing with Kyrie Irving, I thought that the Nets handled it terribly. And we talked about this on a previous pod, but Josiah being one of the first people to bring attention to this on Twitter with Kyrie Irving. And then obviously Kyrie just instantly shut down and started being a terrible, a
Hmm.
terrible customer for a PR agent. And just started, just digging his feet in the sand and handled that situation the worst I've probably seen any player handle any situation over the last decade.
If it
Um,
gets worse, I don't want to see it.
yeah, but when you sit there and you look at it, the Brooklyn Nets actually kind of were the ones that were really digging a fork in that situation instead of actually, handling it with Kyrie. And that situation could have been totally different if Josiah would have been like, instead of him being so frustrated by Kyrie from all the other things, and would have just said, "Hey,
Hmm.
let's handle this situation together and let's get through it because you're going to take a lot of flack for it, but we need to come up with ways that to express how you really feel." Because Kyrie has expressed how he's felt, and he put out a statement on the video, and there's no need to go back and backtrack that. But I really think that the Nets, the way they've handled all these situations, is a bad look because it also led to Kevin Durant, your big fish, wanting to leave town.
Yep.
And when you sit there and you sit there and say, okay, they lost. Harden asked for a trade, Kyrie asked for a trade, and Kevin Durant asked for a trade. The big media conversation is always about these players. Like, what are these players doing wrong? These players have gotten too much control and they're doing all this stuff. But here's the truth. If three players ask for a trade from your organization, it might not just be them that's the problem.
I could see that. And you saw the quote where they asked Kyrie last night, about the Kevin Durant
Mhm.
trade, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just happy for him that he was able to get out of there." So it definitely seems like there was some friction going on. Definitely agree with the championship clause. I think that's absolutely nonsense. I don't see putting
Well,
that.
and I'm gonna stop you. I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
stop you right there. And did you also hear Markeith Morris the other night? They asked Markeith
Yeah.
Morris. They said, "Hey, what did you feel about Kyrie's trade request?" He was like, "Honestly, I was just hoping I got traded with them." It was like
He
it
just
was
wants
a
some
lot.
playing time. He was riding the bench.
Yeah, but when his comments was like, it was a lot going on over there.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
you
it
see what
was.
I'm saying? I think everybody was caught into it now. And granted, I'm not trying to excuse Kyrie Irving from any of that mess at all, because I think Kyrie Irving was probably the biggest problem with it. But there is the national media isn't talking enough about the Nets ownership in a lot of this failure.
Yeah, I think time will tell on this whole situation. I think if the Nets are able to get all these young pieces that are just good 3-and-D wings, like if they're able to build a good culture and make the playoffs and everybody's happy, I think then like okay, it was probably more so Kyrie, or if things keep buckling down with the Nets and Kyrie goes to Dallas and it all works out, he gets an extension and things go well in Dallas, then you could say maybe it was a situation with Brooklyn, but on the other end, I could see where most of this was on Kyrie also, just because when you look at why Harden
Hmm.
demanded a trade, that was because he was fed up with Kyrie. He refused to get vaccinated. So they're playing down a superstar for the whole season or half the season for their home games. So I put that on mostly Kyrie also. And then with KD, I could see that going either way. It could be the management or it could just be like, hey, I signed up to play with all these stars. And Now I'm sitting here with me and Ben Simmons, who we haven't talked about yet, and that is a big piece too. Ben
Yeah.
Simmons being nowhere close to what he was supposed to be is truly him, along with Kyrie being a complete maniac. That is what really derailed them, because if Ben Simmons is the Ben Simmons of
Mhm.
old, this whole situation is different. You can trade Kyrie and still build around Ben Simmons and KD, but Ben Simmons being just a complete non-factor, he's a negative asset right now. That is the big part
Right,
of it.
man. Real quick, worst contract, Duncan Robinson or Ben Simmons?
I think it's still Ben Simmons. I mean, I saw
I
some
do
people
too.
earlier
I do
talking
too.
about, Duncan Robinson being somebody they wanted to go after, and I was like, Google his contract real quick and let me know if you still want him. But they're definitely both in the top five. But yeah, I'm not sure which one. I think Simmons might be a little longer of a contract too, and at least Robinson will shoot the ball.